So we're checking out right now page 10, and this is on the double stroke roll. This is kind of the ultimate drum rudiment right here. Pretty much everything is going to come back to the double stroke roll when you're getting into playing your rudiments. It's not 100% critical rudiment to be a drum set player, but you pretty much want to be able to do it. Like most good drummers who know what they're doing can do a pretty good double stroke roll. Of course, great art has been made by drummers who can't do it at all, but if you want to be a serious drummer or percussionist, you got to have a good double stroke roll. So now real quick about this video, I'm going to start with just the basics as if you have never seen it before or played it before, and then down the road later in the video we'll talk a little bit more about some advanced concepts. So the double stroke roll, basically it just boils down to you make one stroke but you get two sounds. And there's going to be a lot of different techniques on how you can do that, and what it's going to depend on is how fast you need to play it, how loud or soft you need to play it, and thirdly, what type of surface you're going to have to play on. And I think that's kind of the missing like third dimension of playing a double stroke roll when people talk about how to play it. So in essence, what's happening here is the first stroke is driven normally, and then when you develop the finesse and control of the fingers, the second one is enhanced by the finger snap. Now to get to be able to do that, I think you first need to play or learn what I kind of think of as like the far spectrums of how to play a double stroke roll. And the best analogy I can think of for this is like riding a bike shifting gears. Okay, so if you're in the lowest gear, it's incredibly slow, but it's also incredibly powerful. And then in the highest gear, of course, you have all the speed, but it's very difficult to get that moving. Like you couldn't go up a hill with it. It's not very strong. So for drumming, a double stroke roll, your low gear is going to be basically playing a wrist stroke. You're just hitting the drum twice. That still counts as a double stroke. This is going to be used at slow speeds. It's also going to be used playing on a dull surface that doesn't bounce. This is a squishy gel pad here. It kind of simulates playing on like a floor tom. But also, you know, if you're like a mallet percussionist, mallet percussion doesn't really bounce. You're going to have to do a lot of wrist-driven strokes on something like that. Your high gear is going to be the 100% rebound double. So that's if you're really ripping them out like that. It is two completely different techniques to do that. And then eventually, the more you play, and this is going to take months, if not years. I could ramble on this topic for hours because there's a whole lot of ways to look at it and analyze it, and you could practice the double stroke roll for your entire life, which I'm currently doing. I'm still improving on it. This is not one of those things that it's not just information. It's not like someone tells you how to do it, you know, say in a YouTube video, and then you get it and then you understand it and you can do it. It's not how that works. This is a skill. And usually what I tell students is like, it's very simple to explain how to do a push-up. It's a simple act, but obviously it would take forever to perfect, which I obviously have not perfected. Look at me, but yeah. So like, it's simple to explain, but don't get frustrated when it's not happening right away, because this is something that takes a really long time to develop. So in getting the rebound double stroke, this is the trickier one. This is we'll call it our high gear for now. Usually, I think the best way to start off is just do something like this. Take the stick, and you want to be holding it where your fulcrum is. Now, for some people, they have the fulcrum being between the pointer finger and the thumb. I personally actually like to use the middle finger a little more. Some people do that as well, or like a combination of the two. But either way, you want it around your thumb. And just let the stick fall and bounce. and you're doing nothing to help it. It's just falling over like a tree and bouncing like a ball. And see how many bounces you can get out of it. You'd be amazed how many people have a hard time just doing this. And then get used to it with your weak hand. For me, I'm right-handed, so. And then what you want to start doing is, okay, we don't ever hold the sticks like this when we actually drum. Put your other fingers around there like you want, but still try to let it just fall and bounce naturally. Now what we want to do is speed up this bounce a little bit and then cut it off after 2 of them. And we do that by just grabbing the stick. That's a double stroke. For faster ones, you squeeze a little harder, push down more. But this is something you just got to sit and mess with. Don't forget your weak hand. Now this bounce, this is just physics. When you play it this way, the first stroke will always be louder than the second stroke. The next page we're going to talk about the inverted double stroke roll. We'll deal with how to solve this, but for now just be warned, the first stroke will be louder than the second. And that's, you know, on paper that's wrong, that's bad, but we'll patch it up later. But that intervention of the fingers on the second stroke was going to fix that. All right, so let's get to the exercises here. So on the book, page 1 is just your basic, exercise for double stroke rolls. We just start off with quarters, 1, 2, then very common exercise. You can sit and play this as much as you want. And also, with any exercise on here, mess around with, again, speed, dynamics, and what type of surface you're playing on. So even number 1, something as simple as that, you might gloss over it and be like, yeah, whatever, that's easy. But try to play it really fast. Or play it on something dull. It's harder to do than you would think to play on a surface like that. Now, for practicing this, when you're starting off, getting used to the rebound, go ahead and use a bouncy practice pad. I personally actually never play on a pad like this. Once you get used to the mechanics of how this works and how it feels, I suggest actually spending all your time on either a drum, what a weird concept, actually practice on your drum. But if not the drum, play on a dull practice pad that doesn't bounce. This is just kind of like a resistance training. If you don't have one of these, this is called a moon gel practice pad. If not one of these, you can just use a pillow or folded up towels or something like that. It sounds crazy, but I swear it's way more helpful than doing something like this. When you play on a bouncy pad like this, it's far more bouncy than an actual drum is, and you're training yourself more for just a rebound and not how your drums actually feel, which is kind of ironic considering they call these real feel practice pads, but that's not what drums feel like. So practice on your actual drums. Sit and practice on your snare drum if you're doing rudiments. That sounds like an obvious thing to do, but most drummers reach for the practice pad when it's time for rudiments. But don't forget to use your drum. If not, something dull is a good alternative. Anyway, number 2 on this book is just a slightly faster, longer version of the same thing. 1 and 2. Same deal, play around a few different speeds. You want evenness, that's the trick here. And always try to push your ceiling, whatever your speed limit is. You want to get some speed out of this. It doesn't have to be necessarily like a quote-unquote long roll like this one where it just goes indefinitely. There's also little short bursts you can work on. This takes you back to like your 5-stroke roll, your 9-stroke roll, any of those guys. Try them left-hand lead, all that stuff. Looking at number 3, this is a good exercise for isolating which hand has to do the bounce. So in number 3, it just focuses on the right double stroke. And I find for a lot of students this helps. It's a little less overwhelming. to sit and have to try to connect a good double immediately. So with number 3, just right hand. And it also kind of shows you, as it's written, when you're doing a double, it still has to sound like something. It still has to sound like a rhythm. When we're playing a string of just doubles, you still want it to sound like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. It still has to have a value. And number 3, when we get to that part, it should still sound like 1 EN, 2 EN, 3 EN, 4 EN. In theory, you shouldn't be able to hear the difference between those. This also lets you target which hand is the one that's not working for you. So if we play number 3 and delete the left hand, just sitting and doing that is also good. Just mashing down a double stroke when you're not used to doing that. Left hand's the same thing. So if we look at like number 4, kind of feels like a drag when you're doing that, but again, the rhythm should be 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. All right, number 5. So this is where it gets a little into the tricky stuff here. In number 5, measure 2 is just a single stroke 16th note, and then in measure 4 is a double stroke 16th note. And what you want is you want measure 2 to sound like measure 4, as close as you can get it. On practice pads, it's super revealing because you can hear the pitch of the stick, so that kind of throws you off. But the transition from doubles to singles, you want that smooth, and ideally you want the doubles to sound just like your singles. So number 5 goes. And repeat that over and over. Get them the same. It's tricky to do, and you can still hear that pulsing a little bit, the hand, but try to smooth that out. You don't want that there. And then if we go on to number 6 puts them right next to each other. This is really tough. There's actually a really cool video out there of Joe Morello doing this. It's like an instructional thing. And he's ripping through singles, doubles, paradiddles. It's just like the most fluid thing. It's really crazy. But so number 6, I'll play it slowly because those will probably mess it up. A bar is singles, a bar of doubles. And sit and run through that. This one, like an example of this would be if you have to, like, say do a long roll from a snare drum to a floor tom, it's going to feel totally different. So if you have to do, you're going to have to switch midway to singles to get the same power out of that. So I think that, for me personally, that's one kind of practical use of that. I do that quite often on the drum set. But yeah, 6 is a tough one. And you can make up whatever variations of that. If you don't want to do 4 beats of each, try 8 of each, try 2 of each, whatever. Number 7 is essentially a 9-stroke roll, and then backward. So don't forget to play stuff forward and backward. 8 is the same thing as number 2, just left-hand lead. Nothing too crazy there. 9, 10, 11 are just little variants of ways to change it up if you're just looking for more to do. But yeah, double stroke rolls are tough. It's just getting that transition from here to here. When you're starting off, it's overwhelming. It takes a long time, and I mean months. This is definitely delayed gratification, this kind of thing. You can't just have it. So just kind of take slow steps, get used to the initial bounce, Maybe try connecting just those two. Doing some of that. When you're ready, start connecting them. If you're just using 100% bounce, it's not going to sound super awesome, but that's okay. The wrist ones are easy. And then eventually that middle area I was talking about, that gray area, is what you're going to work out by using the fingers a little more. Practice them fast, practice them slow, practice them loud, quiet, practice them bouncy, practice them dull, and a lot. This is going to take a bunch of time. Use a metronome when you practice. It's going to force you to not slow down at all when you play. And then when you get handy with that, the next thing you want to start looking at is the inverted double stroke roll, which is the next page in the next video. So thanks for checking this out. Pick up the book if you have not. Go and Practice Book 2 by me, Alec Tackmann. Book 1 is out there if you need some help with reading, or if you want a book to use on your own students. Book 3 is for you drum set players. This is just a catalog of all my favorite fills based on rudiments. Any questions, just let me know, send me a note, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks.